Welcome along everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this card, which I've called Calm Outlook. And to make this card I used the bokeh stencil. I used the Home for Winter set, the 2 branches with the birds on them. And I used the Light Up the Night set with the branch stamping, the Light Up the Night stamp set. These are all available on the Cardio website. Okay, now just to let you know that normally I use a 7x7 card. This one's smaller, it's 6x6. So I'll just point that out before we start. Okay, so as you can see, I've taped down my card to give it a frame, and I'm going to place another piece of stencil tape around about just under halfway. So I think we're going to go about there, like that. And then I'm just going to put a piece of paper there because I don't want, I'm going to do the top half, the sky, and I don't want it to go onto the bottom half. Now, to blend these colours, I'm going to use one of these brushes because I want this to be very smooth. So I'm going to start off with my cinnamon Versacolor. And what I do is just brush a little bit onto this brush. Now, cinnamon's quite a strong colour. So I'm going to use a piece of paper and just load my brush and then just brush off again. Like that. Now this piece of paper I'm going to be using for all these colours, and you'll see why that's significant when I do the bottom half. So then I'm just going to blend gently along the line where I put the tape and a little bit up the side. And you can see I'm not going very far. I just want this to be a little bit lighter than the rest because this is where the water hits the horizon line. So I want it to be a little bit lighter there. So I put the cinnamon colour down, and now I'm going to take some Narcissus Versacolor, which is a very pale yellow. I'm going to do exactly the same. Brush it off onto there. And then I'm just going to go over that all the way along the bottom of the tape, like that. And then a little bit up into the sides. Okay, so now I've got that done, I'm going to work my way up through the sky, and really this card is all about blending colours. And you know, if you can see these colours, they're all a similar, apart from the 2 end ones, they're all a similar sort of pale pink, orangey, yellow colours. So I'm going to go with the Versacolor Seashell. Again, I'm going to do exactly the same. And obviously, depending on how juicy or how new or how old your ink pads are, you'll get more or less on the brush. So, as I always say, I think it's better just to be cautious to start with, because you know, as you're blending, you can add more, but you don't want this to be too muddy. The whole idea of this card is that it's light and fresh and peaceful, really. Now, as I go up, I'm going to go into the corner. You'll notice I'm going to leave a little space of white here. And that's where I'm going to put a very sort of watery sun moon, whatever you want to call it. And just a little halo around it. So I'm going to leave that white for the time being. So I'm just working up around. And as I said to you before, when you're taping, you don't have to tape down. You can do the whole card like this. But if you're new to crafting and you're a little bit nervous about filling a whole space, this is quite a good technique, because not only does it give you a nice frame, but also it's not so intimidating filling in this space. So if you're going to tape it down like I have, just make sure you put some colour where the tape is, because when you come to draw your line, you won't be able to see where it should go. Okay, so that's the seashell. And then I'm going to run some petal pink, not exactly over it. I'm doing exactly the same. I'm just going to brush that off and then brush it off onto a piece of paper. Just go along the middle and round the top with the petal pink. So we're just going around there and around the top. And then I'm going to take the raspberry. Now, the raspberry is a very strong colour. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just brush, well, 4 times that was. Now this is quite a new ink pad. And there you can see that's really quite strong. So I'm going to blend it really well onto this piece of paper until I've barely got any left. And then I'm just going to go gently, very lightly, don't push too hard on your brush, across the middle and across the top. And I hope you can see that you get the raspberry, but you don't get that really, you don't get this raspberry, you just get the shade of it. I think that's probably enough there. And I'm now going to go in with the heliotrope, and that's just to add a little line across the middle to sort of signify a cloud formation. So again, I'm doing this all with the same brush. So that's why I started off with the lighter colours first. And then we're going to just go across the middle with this. Just across there to the other side and then finish up there. And I think we'll just do a little bit more of that. Again, just blend off onto your, and then just like that. And that you can just sort of make out now the idea of a cloud, but it's in the same types of colours. So it's very subtle. And then this again is a very dark colour like the raspberry. This is called boysenberry. So again, I'm just going to do a couple of strokes of that, you can see, and then just blend that off like exactly the same as I did with the raspberry until you've got almost nothing left. Just going to put the lid on that because it's a bit dark. And then I'm going to go into the top half, because this frames the picture nicely. And just bring that down the side a little bit. And I think that's probably enough. So just to finish this off, where I've done the bottom line there, I just want to give an idea of sunset. So I'm going to go in with my Versacolor orange. All the colours I've used so far have been Versacolor. And again, this is strong, so again, blend off. And then I'm just going to run that along my tape, just the very edge of the tape, like that. It doesn't have to be a line or anything, because you're trying to be sort of fairly subtle, but I think that's fine. And I think you'll probably notice it a little bit more when I actually lift off the tape. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, where I left my white patch, I'm going to take my bokeh stencil. Now, if you haven't got this stencil, you can use any circular stencil, because all we're going to do is make a sort of sun moon, depending on what time of day you want it to be. It's entirely up to you. And I think I'm going to go for this size. I only want a small one, so I'm going to put that in the middle of this halo we've sort of created. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to take my Moonlight Brilliance white, and I'm going to be using a little the sort of foam ended applicators like makeup brush, and then I'm just going to do a circle here. Now, the thing about Moonlight White, it's not exactly white, so hopefully when we lift up you will be able to see that. But I'm also going to do a little halo around that as well, so I think that's probably enough. Just make sure you get into the corners of the stencil, and then now you can just see the shape, make out the shape there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put the lid back on that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean the stencil off where I had the white, and then I'm going to look for a slightly larger one, which I think is that one sort of next to it, or maybe even bigger actually. No, I'll go with that one. Place it so the one you've already done is in the middle, and then just with your brush, and obviously you've got to be careful, it doesn't really matter if you go over the edge, but just create a sort of halo around that. Like that. Can you see? And if you get a little mark like that, don't worry, we just blend it out with the clean part of the baby wipe, and then take your brush and then just blend it in, and blend in where you've done those, that sort of eclipse type effect. Like that. And I'm just going to run a little bit of the seashell colour over that there. Okay, so that's the sort of top half of our sky done. I think also it's entirely up to you whether you do this or not, but I'm going to place my stencil back down over the original circle, and I'm just going to run a white gel pen around it, so, and then just blend that in, just so that it stands out. Okay, so I'm going to remove that piece of paper and lift this up, and now we're going to go into the bottom half of the picture. And the reason I said to you to keep this piece of paper is because what I'm going to do is just pick up the colours, blend them a bit together, pick them up on my brush, and then I'm just going to check my brush isn't too dark, no. And then what we're going to do is just work our way across and down the picture. Now, if you aren't picking any ink up, that's fine. But what we're trying to do is do this very slowly and subtly. So if you get the start of the colour, and then we can add to it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in with my paler colour, my seashell, and just run that all the way across and down, like that, and again. The other tip I'll give you when you're doing this, we actually want this side to be a little bit darker anyway, but if you tend to be right-handed, you tend to sort of go like that, and if you're left-handed, you go the other way. To make it more even, sometimes start from the other side so that you're not loading all the ink onto one side of your project. Okay, so that's the seashell, and now I'm going to go with the petal pink exactly the same way. And again, just keep blending off, because, you know, you can always go back to that. That's it. And then this is just a matter of patience. I'm going to use cinnamon next. It's just building this up very slowly. Now, the reason I said to you start off with the colours that you had on your scrap piece of paper is because you don't want the bottom half to be darker than the top. you want it to be the same colours, because water almost always reflects either the sky or what's around it. So that's why it's good to sort of do the same type of colours. But it will be more effective if it's paler. If you do it, obviously, if you do it as dark as the top, what you find is you can't really tell the difference. And you want to sort of make a real definition. Right, now you see this takes quite a long time, and I'm building up these colours very slowly. I'm going to go more with some more cinnamon. And there's no really quick way of doing this, because if you try and rush this, and I have, so that's how I know, it just goes too dark, and it doesn't work. So, you know, although this is quite a small, simple card to do, it does, this blending does take a little bit of time. So it's quite a relaxing thing to do though. And as you see it coming together, it's I don't know, it's just a nice feeling. I mean, crafting should be relaxing and mindful, and this card definitely is that. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow now, the narcissus. As always, I will put a full list of the stamps, stencils and inks I used in the comment section of this video. So if you can't remember as we go through, then you can always refer back to that. And all the products are available on the Cardio website. Okay, so I think we're getting there. Now, I think you can also notice I'm leaving the middle fairly light. And this is because obviously this is where the moon will be reflecting down. So there's more colour on either side and across the top. And I think we're almost there. I'm going to try and do this a little bit darker today than the original, because I'm aware that on the video these colours are very difficult to pick up sometimes. So when you're at home doing this, you'll be able to do it by eye, and you'll be able to tell when you think it's at the right, you know, when it looks right. Now I'm just going to take a little bit more of the petal pink, and I'm just going to go down the side here, because I do want that to be a little bit darker, and then just brush it across that middle section like that. And then as we get towards the top, just blend into the lines, and you see you get almost like a natural white line running across there. Okay, I'm just going to go once more with the cinnamon, and I think then that will probably be enough. So once more over, and I think that's enough for the purposes of this video. All right, let's get all my inks sorted. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the bottom section, and I'm going to put in my foliage and the birds. So the way I do this is to take a baby wipe, a dry baby wipe, as I said in the last video, make sure they're bone dry. And I'm reusing this one from my original card, because, you know, obviously things are expensive now, and also we've got to think of the environment, haven't we? So again, I'm taking a little bit on my finger, and I'm just going to rub it off. Sorry, I'll put it on there. Rub it off. And I'm going to hold a little piece of paper under here, just really to stop me leaning on the project. And then what I'm going to do is just rub that into the corners, not too far up, about there, and then along the bottom. And this is the other good thing about having stencil tape, is that you don't have to worry. You should get a nice clean line when you lift off your tape. So, you know, you don't have to worry about, you can just blend right down into the tape. And then I'm just going to make that a little bit darker, especially along the line of the stencil tape. Like that. I think that's probably enough. I'm just going to put my lid on, because obviously it's Versafine Clair, and Versafine Clair is a permanent ink and very strong, hard to get off if you get it onto your card. So I'm also wiping my hands as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take my branch stamp and I'm going to ink it up with the Versafine Clair. I'm using fallen leaves for this, so Versafine Clair fallen leaves. And then what I'm going to do is put them, I want one either corner, so I'm going to have one sort of coming out there. It doesn't have to go, so you can see I haven't stamped the whole thing onto there, I've just stamped the branches. Sorry, I haven't stamped the very bottom of that stamp. And then I'm going to twist it round and I'm going to put one here. Now this is entirely up to you, which direction they go in, but try and have them go in different directions. Don't put them all like that way or all the other way, and then stamp half of it. And then once you've got a sort of, make them go a little bit lower in the middle, because that's where we want our birds to go. I'm just going to bring it up a little bit higher on that side, and I'm going to put a little bit more in there. Now once you've got the sort of general shape of that, then you go to secondary stamping, which means, I'm just going to move my paper over so I can show you, just ink it up, stamp off once, and then that's second generation stamping, that's called. So then I'm going to go in, and you can even do third generation. It's just really to fill up that, make it look more like the tangle of a bush or a hedgerow. And then just a little bit more up there. And you see I'm getting marks on there. That's because I've got little bits of ink on my stamp, so be very careful about that. I'm going to try and correct that in a minute with some white ink, so we'll leave that for now. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp the two birds, and the two birds go in different directions. One is, if I show you, one is sort of the branch goes in that direction, the other one almost goes straight up. So we're going to put the one that curves on the left hand side of the card, so we give it a good inking. And then we're going to place that, I'm going to place that where I've made that mark, so hopefully that will cover the mark up. And then just let it sit for a while. There. And then the other one is going to go on the other side. So now the only thing you've got to bear in mind with this one is, because it's straight up, if you try and do it, bend the branch, it looks like the bird's falling off, which I did. I know from experience. So I'm just going to tilt it slightly the other way, like that. There. And because I think that always looks a little bit bare there, I'm going to go back to my branch stamp, just ink the very tips of it. So this one, don't, just ink in the very tips of the branch stamp, and then I'm just going to add that in there, making sure I've got no ink on this stamp that can mark my card. Okay, so I'm just going to do that again and put another one there. I'll put one behind him just to fill that out a little bit. And then because I've marked my card, can you see there, I'm just going to do that on the other side. I'm going to lift that up there just to cover that mark there. And bring that across like that. Okay, so now we've got our birds in place, I'm going to go back in, I'm just going to tear a little bit of this paper, I'm going to go back in, lay that on there. Now you don't really see this so much, but it's amazing just putting in little lines of darker lines. It just gives a feeling of depth that it's not just shading. So, you know, there, can you see? So you're just adding a little bit of substance. And then I'm going to go back onto this side and do the same thing again and run it across there. Like that. And then just blend that all in. Like that. Okay, I'm going to close this up, put the lid on, and I'm going to give my hands a really good clean. And then I'm just going to dry that off. Take my Brilliance Moonlight White. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to take a clean part of my baby white, make sure it's clean. And I'm just going to go in and try and correct those marks there, just so that they don't stick out so much, and just tone down the halo around the sun a little bit. Or sun or moon, it can be whatever you want it to be. Like that, and I think just a little bit more. I think that's probably enough. And then just go back in. One little bit left. And across the top. Okay, right, now we've done that. Now I'm going to use a ruler for this because I want these lines on the water. I'm going to put some gel pen lines on the water now, and I want them to be straight. So I'm going to use a ruler. Now you don't have to, you can do this freehand if you want to. I have done it freehand, but I think this works better. With a card that's very plain like this, I think it works better. Now I've obviously got dark ink on here, so if you're worried about that, just cover that up for there. And then we start from where the sun or moon is and just draw a line across. And they don't have to be all the same length. And once you've got the start of this, you can then go and fill in freehand. But I think the first couple you do, and obviously don't go over the brown bit, so when you get to a brown bit, just like that. And then we've taken it down, right down to where you can still see the water. Now, I'm aware that this is very pale, and I'm just hoping that you'll be able to see it. If it's difficult to see, try and zoom in. If not, take a look at the original card that's been posted on the Craft with Cardio Facebook page, and you'll see these lines. And this is the way to achieve them. So now I've got those lines down there, I'm just going to go in and where I've done them, just go in and try and accentuate them a little bit more. Now the reason I'm using a gel pen for this is because I'm going to go in with some of the white afterwards, and this dries slightly raised, so it shouldn't affect that pen. Right, okay, so now what I'm going to do is go back with my Brilliance Moonlight White and a clean part of the baby wipe, or you can use your sponge applicator. I might do that, and then just run that down there like that. Now the reason I didn't do this before I put the foliage in is because, as I said, gel pens dry a little bit raised. So if you go down to there and then you try and stamp over them, sometimes the ink won't take. It will just sit on top of it and you'll get the impression of the gel pen underneath, so that's, if you're thinking, well, I should have done that the other way around, that's the reason. Okay, so I'm just gonna try and go back there just so you can see that. I hope that's obvious. And as that dries, that comes, it gives you quite a nice gloss. And when in a minute, I'm just going to go over it all again with my applicator, and that will, I think, bring it out even more. And then what I'm going to do is just do exactly the same, but just randomly this time on the rest of the. Now I'm using the Secura gel pen for this because it has a little bit of a sheen to it. But if you haven't got one of these, don't worry, just use the Signo, white Signo pen. I'm not sure the Posca pen will work very well for this. I mean, you could try it if that's the only one you've got, or even a white pencil would probably work. A white chalk pencil or a white watercolour pencil. Okay, I think we probably just put a few more in there. And again, you don't have to use a ruler. I just think this works better with this particular card. And I think you can start to see now that image of the moon reflecting down in the water. And then I'm going to take my applicator, just make sure there's not too much on it, and then just run it right the way across the top. Like that. And it just... Now, obviously, you would make sure your gel pen's dry. And what that does is it will just sit between the gel pen and accentuate the gel pen even more. So I'm just going to go back over that. So I hope that you can see that on there. And then again with the gel pen, I'm just going to add some little, not every branch, but just some little highlights like this. Up there, on there. And if you find that you overdo it, or you think, oh gosh, that's too much white now, all you have to do is get a clean part of your baby wipe and just blend it down into the picture. And to be honest, I like to do that anyway. Okay, and then I am going to take my Signo pen because I want to add just a little bit of highlight to the birds. So I'm just running that off to use, and then we're just going to... Now Wendy's done all this markings for you, so really you just have to go in where she's left the gaps. And I'm going to just use that to go up to that branch that they're actually on, because we want them highlighted. And then you don't have to do this either, but I like to add, I added 2 little birds in the original. There is a bird stamp, but if you don't want to use the bird stamp, or you haven't got one, then you can just do this. I'm putting a clean piece of paper over here so I don't mark my work. I'm just going to do a little V, and then just mark it in the middle, and then another one there, like that. Let them dry off a little bit. And then what I like to do, because they're supposed to be in the moonlight or the sun, we're just going to give the inside of the wings a little highlight, just to look like they're catching the sun. And it's hard to see that in the moment, but as that dries, it just highlights that as if the sun is catching their wings. And then I'm taking an orange gel pen. And again, if you haven't got an orange gel pen, you can use liquid drops or whatever you have that you can improvise with. I'm just going to run this off, and then I'm just there's little, you can see the little round berry tops on here, so I'm just going to tap my orange gel pen, just being careful not to mark the bird, on the end of those branches, and it just gives that little pop of colour, because the rest of the card is quite subtle. I think a few more into the foliage. And if you want to, you can do the same. You can add a few white. I'm just going to add 1 or 2. I don't want to add too many, because the main feature really is the water and the birds in this. And as always, take a look at your picture. I'm just going to redefine the wing of my bird, because I've probably put too much there. Just put too much, that's it, white over him. And I'm just going to blend down the sun again with my seashell colour. Just going to start here to rub it off, and then just blend that down a little bit there. Right, I think that's fine. So when you're happy with your picture, and just move everything out of the way, especially the things that have got dark ink on them, because you don't want to spoil it now. Wipe your hands, make sure you've got no Versafine clair on them, and your mat. And move those out of the way. Okay, and then we'll remove the tape, so just very carefully. And there you can see you get that lovely crisp outline. Move that from there. Get rid of the tape, and as you know, I like to run just a line around that. I'm just cleaning my ruler, because I want to make sure there's nothing on my ruler. So then we're going to put that there. And you've seen me do this lots of times before. This is just my personal preference, as I said to you before. If you want to fill up the whole card and not just do a section of it, of course you can. I think I just think with a card that's quite a simple sort of picture, I think this framed look is lovely, because sometimes I think if you do it too big, it can actually lose the charm of it, and it's a lot of space to fill. Okay, I hope you can see that. So that's my finished picture, and I'm just going to bring in the original now. So that's the original, and that's the one I've done today. And I think if you look at this one, it's a little bit more cinnamony, the sky. This one's a little bit more pink, but I did spend a little bit more time blending the colours in. I think you can see there's a bit more mauve in this one than there is in this one. But I don't really think it matters. I think that's entirely up to you. As long as you get the contrast between the sky and the water, I don't think it matters, how you blend it, as long as you blend it all together. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to welcome you along the next time. Thank you for watching.